We are flying through this book so fast. And as excited I am to read this book, I'm so excited to get to the end because we're moving to our next adventure. Yes, I said it, adventure. Want to know where we're going? Stay tuned. You're going to want to hear this. Hello again. I knew you'd be back for another chapter. Are you ready? I'm very excited to open a unique window and personal perspective into this rare art form that has been held as a secret for centuries by those who have worked, traded, and sold gemstones. I can only speak from the Western standpoint of gem art because there is a long and very rarefied existence, even older than Europe, of gem art in the Orient that dates back for centuries in jade carving. I will not go into the Oriental history of the art, which is beyond my knowledge, except for a minor understanding of the lineage of the art in the East. I also have no intention of giving the definitive view on Western Europe's role in the history of gem art, just as a brief overview of gem art as I have come to understand it today in the dawn of the 21st century here in the United States and Europe. Talk about jade. I cannot wait until we talk about jade. So excited. Oh my goodness. Let's go. This chapter is only intended to give a very brief overview as to the history and short description in my own personal interpretation of what the terms gem art and gem artist mean. So new is the term gem art that I believe there is no real definition of the word that has come into use in modern times. I believe the word gem art is a very recent term applied to artists like myself that came of the age in the late 20th century and the many more who now practice the art in the beginning of the 21st century. There are numerous books that have been written on lapidary, gem cutting, and basic tools, but very little has been printed about this new genre in the world of gem cutting. Gem art could in a wide definition mean the art of carving, sculpting, and cutting gemstones in new and exciting ways not seen before in the field of lapidary. This can be seen as the creative animal carvings that Adar Oberstein is so famous for, that was brought to a zenith during the era of Fabergé, and the modern and very stylized cameo carvings that someone like Irwin Pauli brought to the public, starting back in the 1950s and 1960s. More recently, the term fantasy cuts, a form of carving into the stone negative cuts that reflect and refract with very refined flat facets organized to reflect these negative cuts, innovated by Bernd Munstier of Adar, which helped create a whole new genre in cutting. Although it is often referred to as laser cutting, it is in fact very carefully done by hand, the old-fashioned way, with grinding wheels. I would say the very first wave of the art in the Western world, and most specifically in Europe in gemstone material, can still be seen today that was created during the Renaissance period. One can visit numerous museums and castles of Europe and see this fabulous art of gem material on display. Sacred religious gem art and vessel style bowls and cups in gem material commissioned by the royal families of the day and the church itself. These were the patrons of the day that fostered this craft. Since signing this type of art back then was not allowed or even considered possible like a painting or marble sculpture, we have no records as to whom these masters of the day were. They are lost to antiquity. The next big period as an emergence of what I would call gem art was during Fabergé's period, which then continued on into the Art Nouveau period with artists like René Lalique and Tiffany, and then into the Art Deco period with extraordinary gem art with major jewelry houses like Cartier. World War II had a devastating impact on gem art in the villages of Adar Oberstein, Germany. Many of the young carvers were scripted into war, or those in the very large Jewish community of the gem business were either sent to concentration camps or labor camps. I was told by a local in Adar that many of the very best Jewish carvers were sent to labor camps where they were made to carve and fabricate the metals for the German army. Adar did not recover until the mid-1950s, from what I was told. During all these periods in history, going back to Roman times, the actual craftsman would receive little or no recognition. This whole concept of the artist signing his or her work in gem art did not start until masters like Erwin Pauli, the renowned master cameo carver from Adar Oberstein, started the practice in the 1950s and 60s. He personally told me how in those days they criticized him in the Adar Valley for doing this at the time. I am not sure, but his teacher Richard Hahn, who is credited with bringing back cameo carving to Adar Oberstein after the war, may have actually started the practice. Most gem artists throughout history have passed on without any real recognition as to whom the creator was. For centuries, this craft was closely guarded, and the doors to a lapidary studio closed unless you were invited in to apprentice with a master of this craft. Most guild crafts in Europe were passed on from within one's family or taught by a master to his or her chosen apprentices, if found to show some adept ability in this rare medium of art. These skills and techniques were closely guarded and considered extremely rare at the heart of this precious art form and kept a deep secret in centuries past. In times of old, it would not be easy for an outsider to even consider a career as a lapidarist due to a large extent of the preciousness and rarity of the material, coupled with skills that can take years to perfect. Until just recently, even the craftsmen of lapidary were hidden from the public eye, and their art was brought out into the world by a gem dealer who made sure no one knew the artist or creator. This was the asset of the gem dealer who kept others from knowing the creator or artist of the gemstone. I realize I have a grand opportunity in the 21st century to open wide the doors to my art studio and share this mysterious secret world of gem cutting and gem art. In the next chapter, I will go into a bird's eye view of a working gem art studio with a brief outline of tools and basic techniques to create this exacting art form. The craft is not an easy art to learn from a master, let alone being self-taught. In the past, being self-taught was unheard of. There were a handful of unknown cutters in the U.S., of which I am one, who back in the 1970s and early 80s labored in obscurity through trial and error to master this art, unlike many in the guild schools of Europe. This included Henry Hunt, considered the grandfather of American gem artists. It was not until I met Henry Hunt in a jewelry store in San Francisco around 1977 did I know anyone else even thought and carved like I did. Later in my career, I learned about Francis Sparacin, who lived right in my backyard in San Francisco. Unfortunately, I did not know of him at the time. A real master of lapidary who did very unusual work for his day back in 1940s to the 1960s. His work can be seen today in museums set in modernist-style silver jewelry by very creative designers during the Beat generation in the USA. He was truly a trailblazer in the history of American gem artistry.